Good morning, everyone. Hopefully, this is a wonderful Monday morning for everybody. I'm Ardis Kadiu here at Element451. I'm the CEO and founder, and you're in your Element show with Ardis and Erin. Good morning, Erin.
Good morning, Ardis. I'm Erin Newton. I'm the head of marketing here at Element, and we're here for another fresh morning on a Monday talking about Element.
Yeah, so today we're going to cover a topic that is at the core of what we do, and then at the core of a lot of the metrics that we start thinking about in terms of the intent on student side, and that's engagement. So we talk about engagement all the time. We think about how do we measure engagement and how important it is to our metrics and how important it is to know exactly what we're putting or we're identifying as engagement. Here at Element, we think about engagement a lot. And when we think about engagement, there's a lot of different aspects of it from the student side. As a marketing automation platform and CRM and engagement platform, we have to take into account a lot of different touch points and a lot of different interactions. For those of you who have been keeping up with the latest news, one of the things that marketers have kept as part of engagement in the past has been the open rate, or how many folks are opening their emails and how many are looking at them. Well, if you kept up with it, you've probably been bombarded with articles and news articles. The latest iOS update, iOS 15, there is a technical implementation of how email works that allows Apple to pre-read your emails before it shows them to you. And in that case, now every open rate metric that has traditionally been the cornerstone of engagement for marketers and email marketers for that specific case is now thrown out the window. So how do we fix engagement, and how do we do engagement without open rates? Well, you have to look at all the other things, right? And Erin, can you describe a little bit on how we think about engagement in the post open rate email marketing?
Yeah, of course. It's kind of ironic that it's for privacy, but your messages will be read before you read them. Just hit me right now.
Exactly.
Aside from that, so open rates
just like your. Oh, sorry. I was going to make another comment there. Just like your photos being run through, Google and Apple are getting some backlash around our photos being run through the algorithms for child pornography or any of that stuff. But now it's like, well, wait a minute. I don't want my photos to be analyzed.
Right. Maybe we all just need a digital detox for a few days, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So open rates have been not that great of a measure of engagement for a while, because when you think about what is engagement, I think the terminology, I don't know, I'm sure that there are people working on PhDs who have other definitions, but I think kind of the origins would be around social media, and that's where we've started to think of engagement as actual activity that somebody is doing that can be measured, and it shows something about their affinity or opposite of affinity, something with whatever content is being posted or the brand. So when you think of open rates, those are easily accidentally clicked open an email. You could not read it at all. You could immediately delete it. There are so many more things going on. So when we think about a post open rate significance of it makes email marketers and marketers more generally have to think about more richer types of engagement and cumulatively. So looking at not just, okay, did you click on this? It's like, okay, well, did you read it? For how long? I know we use HubSpot and they can tell you how long messages on average were looked at. So there's a lot more things to look at to think about, okay, what actually is the engagement level here with this particular person in our audience?
Yeah. And to that point, so we've been thinking about this a lot, and we've implemented a number of different things in Element that actually look beyond those open rates or those click rates in your email and kind of make it cumulative in terms of your engagement score. So one of the things that we do is we give everybody in Element an engagement score. And if you look at really quickly at kind of how we do that, we have, rather than giving everyone a 0.2 or a 0.5 or whatever, we're looking at email interactions, and that's both email opens and clicks, kind of SMS messages, links and things like that, form submission, events, logins, page views. Your website is now one of the most important properties. So we're looking at all those different signals, we're combining them together, and we're giving somebody an engagement score. And essentially, the way that we think about engagement score is that, as an administrator, as a counselor, as somebody who's looking at a student or somebody who's looking, you just want to identify if this person is someone who you don't know anything about, who doesn't engage with your content at all, or maybe engages a little bit, or is very, very active, right? So those are the 4 buckets that we put people into, and it's an algorithmic combination of all of those different interactions, right? And it kind of makes a lot more actionable if you put them into those buckets, right? So a stranger is somebody who we don't have any data about. A dormant person is somebody who we've kind of sent communications and we have kind of outbound stuff, but they haven't responded to anything. A lurker is somebody who maybe has kind of interacted with just a couple of things. And a fan is somebody who's kind of interacted with a lot more. So you see these percentages here, and those percentages are really things like they have interacted with a lot of these different pieces based on that formula that we use to calculate the interactions down here, and the 50% plus is the fan. So it becomes really good proxy for how engaged that person is. And now one of the things that we've seen is that engagement score is a great way to think about. So if I go back here, and one of the things that I can do is I look at how we're using that. We are able to now pull out those people based on their engagement score, but also based on where they are in the funnel, right? Their conversion flow. So we have this notion of smart segments because the engagement is not static. You can't just score somebody and then keep them like that. So what we're doing is that we're looking at it at a time based, right? So we have the engagement score, but then we also have this conversion flow. So how are folks changing their engagement based on certain funnel stages that they're in, right? Inquiry, application, confirmation, so on and so forth. And then making predictions based on prior activity on how likely are they to hit certain targets. So huge difference from just looking at static open rates or static click-through rates. It's a little bit different now. Erin, how does go ahead.
I was just going to ask, for people who might not be familiar with just the terminology of segment and kind of how that translates to using a CRM or an email marketing platform. We use it all the time, so I think we're just really used to it. But it's essentially kind of who you might be engaging with a particular communication. So you can think of it as kind of like a list. I just wanted to make that for some context, and also how do those smart segments, what would be like before smart segments? What is this kind of helping people with? Because
Yeah.
not every platform has smart segments. So this is something special. We should explain why it's new, great, the best thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, so if you think about before smart segments, what you have to do is you have to go in and pull queries, right? You have to say, okay, you have to have a mental model of what constitutes somebody who is interested or engaged. And that is dependent on how good you are at marketing metrics and how good you are and how good the platform is at measuring them. So for example, one of the metrics they use is engage, like you, for example, use how many opens and like what campaigns have had the most opens, or how many students has this source brought me. So you're looking, but you're doing queries because you have an idea in your head, and then you're querying to see if that's accurate or not, right? So you're getting a population of students who have been sent the campaign, and they've opened or clicked through that campaign, and now you look at that engagement, and that's how you figure out who's important. But you have now so many different touch points that it's very, very hard for you to build queries to look at all those different touch points and how they interact. And when you look at them at the individual level, it's very different when you look at them at the aggregate level, right? So when you look at it at a list, that's very different when you look at it at the individual level. And we always want to get down to the individual level. So let's say Johnny has, opened, they have clicked on some emails, they have visited your website, they have submitted a form, but then someone else, they actually have submitted an application, plus they have, they don't use email at all, but they use SMS. So SMS is another channel. So now, how do you mentally think about all these different things and put them together? Well, you can't do that manually, right? It just becomes an arduous task. So machines are really good at it, right? So as they look at all these different touch points, they put together what's called that engagement score that we have. And based on the engagement score, then you put together the smart segments. And those smart segments are changing constantly. So they're doing the querying for you. So they're evaluating individual users, and then they're grouping them together, and they're saying, hey, this person is, this person has an engagement, a lurker engagement score, but then also they're likely to convert, based on where they are in the funnel, right? So that's the AI part. So we have multiple ways of doing this, right? So that's smart segments in here, and then the likeness to convert as well.
Right. Yeah. In the olden times, or if you don't have a piece of software that does this, you have to first know what you want to query for.
Exactly.
Which is, if you're not, a super marketer or, really advanced in analytics, you might not know that. And then you have to actually build out with all those filters, do that query. And just for somebody who's, maybe a marketing or admissions team member, and they're want to get emails out the door to make sure that they're speaking to the prospects that they need to be, that's really a lot of work. So, yeah, I found for myself that it's a huge, because I'm a content person. I want to know who I should send this to, not have to spend half my day, working with formulas and filters to figure it out.
Yeah. So one thing that we also think about so we're engaging with a lot of different institutions, and as we're kind of there, as they're joining an Element, one of the things that we talk to them about quite a bit is like a new way of thinking about their funnel and their engagement, and how they should be looking at their numbers and kind of the predictability of their class. So one university partner we're talking to, well, actually more of them, but essentially we're able to identify areas, weaknesses in the funnel, weaknesses in their communication approach based on these models, these engagement models. So one of them the other day is like, well, we had a lot of applications. So we had a lot of prospects, right? They're great prospect pool. We had a lot of applications. But the yield, they just didn't convert. Our yield fell off the roof, right? Well, so how do you identify that right away? Well, you can look at engagement, and they'll tell you that if a large percentage of your admitted population is not engaging with your communications, or it's not going to your website or any of those other pieces, then you're going to have a significantly lower yield. So if you look at those numbers and how we're looking at those numbers, then we're able to predict that you're going to have less than optimal fall in conversions or more than optimal. So essentially, it's a proxy for your conversion rate, the engagement component. Now, if somebody says, I have a lot of students in my prospect, I have a lot that are coming and inquiring, but they're just not applying. And once they apply, they convert really well. Well, you have a different problem, right? So now you're going to see and say, okay, there's friction. We keep bringing this word friction again, right? But it just means that students are falling off, or they're not engaging, right? They're not moving towards that intended goal. And we look at that and we say, okay, you're probably not communicating enough. They don't have enough touch points, or they don't have enough instructions, or your application processes, it's hindering that, or they just don't know where to find. So those are the things that then you start looking at those individual points and you say, okay, well, are the people who are actually, in those stages, are they interacting or not? And so on and so forth. So it's a proxy for a lot of the things that we're doing. And here, for example, you see it's like significant, this is a model for a significant dormant behavior in undergraduate. It's observed in the, for example, in the, there's a lot of dormants here in that undergraduate population for this applicant class, and then 81% of admit class is engaged. So this is a good yield modeling. So what you see over here is it's actually pretty good, right? So anyways, one of the things that we look at, it's also, okay, your populations, your fans increase as you move towards the funnel, right? Because they become more engaged with you. And as long as that, is constant, and your conversions are, your model or your engagement model is actually working pretty well. All right.
Yeah,
well,
I think
we can talk about this all day.
yes. I just wanted to, one more thing, kind of like the old way and the new way is all of these channels that we can push out on and we interact with people. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but if you take a step back, it's actually incredibly useful that you have real-time ability to course correct on things that might not be working. So, and if you have this smart, intelligent, constant real-time updates of your engagement, you don't have to wait until yield season is over to be like, oh my gosh, we could have done X. Let's do that next year. No, you can do it this actual cycle.
Exactly. So that really becomes one of the questions that we get a lot from our partners, or one of the pain points is really, how do I figure out in real time what are my shortcomings and what those students are looking for, and what do I need to do to kind of help them move through the process. And it's all about the engagement component. One of the things to think also about is application numbers are increasing. We have now about 25% more applicants, because students are applying to 25% more schools every year. So the average number went from, I think, 4 point something to 6 or this past year. So now you're seeing your application pools are inflated, but those students are not engaging with you if they don't want to come to your school, or if you're a safety school, they're not really caring too much about, unless something else happens, and then their activity kind of shoots up. So it's really a real-time look into the action is really intent, right? So action is intent.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, this has been really helpful. I think we got to see a lot of the data and how we can make it manageable in Element, because it's powerful, but yet it can be overwhelming at times. So you need the right tools to kind of bubble up what those insights are, or else it's very easy to get kind of lost in the weeds.
Exactly. Well, thanks everybody. As always, I'm Ardis, and thanks to my co-host Erin. We'll see you on Wednesday during our news show, and then next week again on Monday. Of course, we're here every Monday and Wednesday, so we'll see you.
We'll see you, and you can subscribe if you want to make sure you never miss a show.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Ardis.
Thanks, everybody. Bye, Erin.